I'm on digging out this morning from a big snowstorm to come up, and instead of going skiing, you came to see one of the rock stars of our industry, Kerry Caraghar. Kerry is, for those that don't know Kerry, his family goes back, I don't know if it's homesteading days or what, but generations in Colorado, and he's grown up and he knows this state better than anybody in terms of fishing. And he has a passion. He's got a just an ability to take the intimidation factor out of this sport. He runs our training program and is introducing new people to this every day. But based on the turnouts that he gets when he does these presentations, we've got to consider remodeling and expanding the shop, because it's like standing room only. But I don't want to take anything away from Kerry, but I'm going to turn it over to him. You guys are in for a treat. And Kerry's going to tell you all about Clear Creek, so you don't have to go hours and hours to catch fish.
All right. Thanks for having me out. Boy, those are kind words. Am I getting a raise now? Yeah, thanks for coming. This is, when I was driving home last night, I live in Ken Carroll, and I'm like, wow, we're not going to have many people. So that's amazing. It's near and dear to my heart. So with that said, I'm very proud to work for the Blue Quill. The thing about it is I'm very proud to be a native, and we'll talk a little bit about me being a native, just because this is being YouTube or close to it. And my wife gets mad at me. She's like, "There's no such thing as a Colorado native. All natives lived in teepees, Kerry. They didn't come from Ireland." I'm like, well, alrighty then. You know why she's mad. No one from Nebraska here, right? That's good. No, I love Nebraska. My daughter's going to the University of Nebraska, but my wife, I think, gets a little upset because she's from Nebraska. Can't say she's a native. But I have seen a lot of changes, and I'm fortunate to come back to the Blue Quill. Certainly, my family came to Breckenridge in 1868. They just weren't smart enough to hold on to any of their property by the ski hill. But I've been blessed to have a nice career in the fly fishing business. Started guiding for the old fly fisher in 1986, hence the gray hair. And then hence the more gray hair, I went to work for Orvis Corporate for 11 years. So it's kind of a blessing to come back here. I mention Orvis because Orvis was highly involved in a lot of restoration efforts on Clear Creek. See, Tony, I'm trying to behave myself because I know if this can be watched, I might be in a little trouble.
Well, it's not live. So, it's recording.
Who here drives a big block Chevrolet besides me?
You.
Yeah, I will tell you that it's reality. You know, right now gas is pretty cool. It's like, yeah. My wife's like, how many times have you used the gas card this week for like $3.10? I'm like, well, because gas is $1.90. I want to keep that $1.90 gas in my tank. But eventually that's going to change. I guarantee that's going to change. So I started this whole quest a number of years ago when I was still working for Orvis. You know, I mean, I grew up on the South Platte. My grandparents had a hotel and fishing lodge in Buffalo Creek. I was born in the thriving metropolis of Pine Grove. It's now called Pine Grove. I changed my birth certificate to Grove. That's the railroad name. My grandpa actually worked on the railroad up there. But I started this quest of fishing close to home. That doesn't mean that I don't like fishing the big rivers and that we don't promote the South Platte or the Eagle or the Colorado or the Arkansas or the Williams Fork. But truth be told, we can't all fish. We can't fish those places as much as we would like to. I mean, we see it every day in here. People come in and you know, it's like, where are you going? Oh, I'm not going fishing. I gotta do some work in the basement. So this presentation is going to be kind of fun because it's fishing close to home, which I kind of started that whole deal. I was on a quest to find places to fish close to home. So if you ever see me fishing in an irrigation ditch, trust me, it's fish there. But I'm going to tell you about where to go fishing and not have to drive too far. You know, I love Charlie Myers. One of the last stories that Charlie and I did together before he passed away was on Clear Creek. And a couple of these pictures are on Clear Creek. And for those of you who fish the Dream Stream, drives me crazy because it's technically the Charlie Myers State Wildlife Area. If you ever look at the historic marker up there, there's a picture of two guys walking through an aspen grove. That's me and Charlie's son. And guess what? That was on Clear Creek. Alright, so now I'm getting a call from the Division of Wildlife. But seriously, that picture was from Clear Creek. Because that's one of the last presentations that we did together. But he asked me, he said, why do you like fishing this little stuff? Because it keeps you sharp for when you go to the bigger rivers. You know, I will tell you that the first time I fished the Bighorn, I went to the big, no, this is not a railroad presentation. See some people in the back go, what's this about? The first time I went to fish the Bighorn, I was confused. You got to remember, I grew up learning to fish on Buffalo Creek, the North Fork, and Deckers. Right? So I get to the Bighorn, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do here? I was like a madman. It was like a buggy whip. Where's the fish? I'm going to tell you, learn to fish Clear Creek, close to home, Bear Creek, some of these smaller drainages, even Buffalo Creek, and you learn to be a better fly angler on larger rivers. Well, how does that work? Well, the next time you're intimidated on the North Platte at Saratoga, don't look at the whole river. Just look at it like it's 5 Bear Creeks, Clear Creeks next to each other, and fish it that way. So I talked about my grandfather. One of the reasons that I started this whole quest on Clear Creek and got Orvis to pay a whole bunch of money for restoration is I have that, there's no deacons or priests here, are there? I'll be in confession for the next 6 months. I kind of have that Irish Catholic guilt a little bit. It's passed down. It's in your genes. They say it doesn't. Even if you don't go to church, it's still there. So I kind of feel that guilt, and in some way, some part of me wants to give back to what happened here when my family came here, because they didn't understand the damage that they did. The railroading, the mining, it all destroyed a big part of Clear Creek and a lot of our precious little gems, particularly here on the Front Range. So I wanted to tell you that's my grandfather. You can see that. Look at the Irish ears. I don't have to tell you which one's my grandpa. By the way, he got the short gene. I think he was from Northern Ireland. This is a standard gauge train. My grandfather ran the narrow gauge up Clear Creek Canyon. By the way, it didn't go through those tunnels, it went around the tunnels. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But that was my grandfather. That's how far my family goes back. And so I'm very passionate about a lot of things, but when it comes to fly fishing. But trying to make things simple, making things fun, is what fly fishing needs to be all about. And so that's why I love Clear Creek. Plus, I kind of, you know, my mind sometimes runs a little wild with me. I can kind of think sometimes what my grandfather might have seen when I'm fishing certain parts of Clear Creek, and wonder if that's why the train was so far behind all the time, because maybe the train was stopped and he was fishing. So, but it's kind of cool to think about, you know, the history going up there. I hope no one here is related to Edward R. Hewitt, but this is wrong. And this is wrong for a lot of reasons. And David Nickham, the guy that's head of Trout Unlimited, he gave me a book, and I got this quote out of that book. So if he's here, sorry David, but this is not right. Fishing has gotten a lot better, and that's why I mentioned being a Colorado native, because people tell me all the time, oh my gosh, fishing was a lot better when you was a kid, right? What do you think? No, fishing wasn't as good. Now there was less people on the river, particularly at that Decker's Bridge. I got myself in real big trouble with my bosses here. But one of the other things too is spreading the pressure around and giving people new opportunities and places to fish. Fishing has gotten better. It's gotten a lot better because of organizations like Trout Unlimited, like Triple F, great fly shops like the Blue Quill that promote education. All of my students, I try to instill a little bit of stream etiquette, especially if you're going to fish on the weekend, you know, certain parts of the Platte. But education, conservation, and I'm not a big tree hugger. I used to ride dirt bikes. That's why I stand funny. My whole lower back is plastic. So, you know, it's just the fact of the matter is we're lucky to have organizations like West Denver TU and Trout Unlimited who are the true watchdogs of our cold water resources. Let's get started about Clear Creek. You know what, there's very little written about Clear Creek, and someone mentioned, you know, the last presenter has a book, and I will tell you that my boss, Pat Dorsey, he's encouraged me to write a book. He's written a lot of books. I'd rather fish on my days off. Gosh, I'm gonna get myself in real trouble. But we can edit this video. The other thing that I do here is manage the guide service. So sometimes I get to be Pat's boss. So that's really cool. But when I'm away from here and from, you know, the working in the shop, I want to fish, and generally I'm either on the South Platte or Clear Creek or in Wyoming. So I tried to write a book on Clear Creek. I got the outline done, and I actually talked to the county commissioner who lives in Clear Creek County. So your county commissioner used to be Tim Mock. He's term limited out. He's an awesome guy. He's a good fly fisher. He's a good angler. So he will, because he's retired now. He came in here not too long ago. So I spoke with him about getting maps, because if you're going to do a book on Clear Creek, like Ron's book on the high country, that's great information. In Clear Creek County, there's no good information on a lot of access points. Who's fished Clear Creek a fair amount? So, you know, I mean, sometimes you have to question yourself. Am I on private water here? Because a lot of things change from year to year, and they change from year to year thanks to my family. Here comes that guilt again. You know, those mining claims have changed hands, and all of a sudden, you know, a certain member of the family decides now they don't want to let people in there. So there are no accurate maps of Clear Creek, period. There's not. And I've looked at trying to make one. So, you know, I'm happy to help anyone out coming in, that come in the shop before you go fishing. We'll try to not get you a ticket. But if it's posted, don't fish it. But the other information that drives me crazy is the books that do talk about Clear Creek tell you how polluted it is. Who thinks it's really polluted? Because when I was a kid, yeah, there was a heavy metal content, and there was a lot of erosion due to the railroad, and there was a lot of mismanagement, you know, where they just dumped fish in there and it was all put and take. But things have changed, and things have changed drastically. This circle shows you all 4 forks of Clear Creek. We all know there's 4 forks of Clear Creek. Look how much water Little Clear Creek provides to the Front Range of Colorado, particularly the Denver area. It's more than what you think. Now, it's not like the Roaring Fork, certainly, you know, or the mighty South Platte. But there's a fair amount of water that comes down to Clear Creek and provides another great tributary for the mighty South Platte. So that circle is kind of around all 4 forks. But that circle is also to remind us what's going on. You know, we all get mad at, who hasn't gotten mad at the government lately, right? I don't even want to watch the news. Like I've watched the same thing on History Channel 16 times just so I don't have to turn on one of those news networks. Well, this is an opportunity to think good about your government. Because a number of years ago, some folks figured out that Clear Creek is a very precious resource. Within that circle, there are 7 monitored Superfund sites. You remember a few years ago when there was that little mishap when a tailing pond broke? And it put all those heavy metals into Clear Creek? Less than 30 minutes later, that was discovered and taken care of. So it's watched. So we now have not just TU that looks after this and does a lot of stream monitoring, but we actually have the government now doing something right. Oh, thank God. Let's go on a little virtual tour. Yeah, it's 100 years of devastation and basically a decade of restoration. Let's go to Golden. Who's fished downtown Golden? It's actually pretty cool. It's close. My wife's very suspicious when I tell her I am going to do my honey-do list, and then when I'm going to that Home Depot over there that's pretty close, she gets suspicious when the fly rod goes in the truck. What do you need that for? So that's how close it is to my house. I'm very passionate about this area because it is close to home, and when we first started talking about doing some restoration, the guys and gals at West Denver TU already had that project going. And so they just asked me can you ask Orvis to get us a lot of money? I'm like, sure, why not? Hey, Mr. Perkins, I'll never forget that conversation. I go, yeah, we kind of want to restore this wild trout fishery in downtown Golden. He's like, are you serious? How bad do you want your job, Caraghar? Right? I made you a manager? What? Well, after he came out and we talked about it, he gave a lot of money. Orvis gave a lot of money to this project. So if we don't know how to get there, you go down I-70, get off on Highway 58.
And it's blocked, you can't get in town.
You can't get in town now?
No, none of these guys can.
Oh.
Yeah. It's closed.
See, in my next life, I'm going to
Better
be an
check what he has in
attorney
that.
because I always want to talk to a judge and be on the good side. Because I've talked to judges before on that other side. So I will tell you a quick little story. Someone said, you can't talk about Clear Creek anymore. Because I'm from Clear Creek County and I've been there since 1968. And I'm like, cool, my family's been there since 68 too. But that would be 18. And I'm glad that we have another opportunity to fish close to home. Highway 58, but when you say blocked off, it kind of scares me because a lot of that stuff does get blocked off.
Well, you know, they're doing all that work on the north side of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a mess, but yeah,
There's
you can
other-
still get down to the river.
You can get down there. So Highway 58 West, find Washington Street. And as you drive by Coors, wave at Coors, and that's how I justify drinking Coors, because they've given a lot of money to restoration efforts. So go past Coors on Highway 58, get off on Washington Street, go south, turn right on 10th Street, you find yourself in Lions Park. Who's fished Lions Park? And that's close to home. This is a great opportunity for an afternoon with your family or people that come in the shop say, oh, I don't have time to fish. Well, yes, you do. And you know what? Involve your family the next time you fish. And the reason that we love the Clear Creeks of the world is it's not as technical as what some of the other fisheries are. So it's back to that fun thing. This is that commemorative plaque. You can see the Orvis Company. All of that structure work that was done in there was from West Denver TU. And when Coors found out that some East Coast company was given a lot of money for stream reconstruction in their backyard, whoa. I noticed the price of banquet beer went up a little bit, but we did get a lot of money for that stream reconstruction, so that's the plaque. If you pull into Lions Park, there is a kayak course there. You know, that's cool, we all have to cohabitate, there's a lot going on there. The cool thing about kayak courses, that's holding water.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't have to be concerned. If someone goes upside down in a kayak, there's no reason for you to call 911. I've thought about that. This guy's been underwater a long time. He pops back up and is like, hey, how many brown trout did you have? Let's go play at the next structure downstream. So we all get along. This is one of the structures that was built. It's a very natural structure, and now the experts are kind of telling us that the water quality down low, and this is the lowest part of Clear Creek that I certainly fish, or we'll talk about fishing. That the water quality is very good down here. So yeah, this is kind of a little bit of Hollywood going on here. You know, yeah, high rod tip, fish coming way out of the water. You know, I'm never going to apologize. Like I talk to Landon all the time about it. It's like, do you like have to do this, weights, that? Here's what I do. And that's okay, because I'll never apologize about catching little fish, particularly in this spot, because it's 11 minutes from my house. But this is playing that fish a little bit like Hollywood. I think, where's Dave? Dave took this picture, so. But anyway, there's the big M on the mountain. Yeah, there's the old net. You know what? These fish are wild. Now, we know that brown trout weren't native to Colorado, but that's okay, because the fish that are in there and throughout the whole Clear Creek drainage are wild. They're spawning in there. They're turning over in there. Less pressure on the parks and wildlife to stock it. And how cool is it to catch a wild fish? Now I have to be real careful. So, about talking about wild fish versus some of the ranches that we fish on. So, we'll just move right past that. Good thing I haven't had any coffee other than about a gallon this morning. That's a beautiful fish. And I'll never apologize for catching something that small. So that's a great opportunity for you. Lions Park, there's there's picnic areas there. This is a great place to, to take the family for a couple hours, go grill a hot dog or a hamburger, and you go fish. You can fish that all the way up to tunnel number 1. There's a nice path in there. Who's fished that up there towards the tunnel? Some pretty good water. It tends to get a little busy down there, particularly when the kids are out of school from the School of Mines. Yeah, that's an interesting hatch. It's it's not in the entomological book. We call it the bikini hatch. So
They have some of the banquet beer too.
shame on them. You better be of age.
Cup holders on there.
But you can move past that bikini hatch. You can move up towards tunnel number 1 and fish. There's some great pocket water. If you want to just fish tunnel number 1, then let's pretend that we're in my truck and pull back out of Lions Park, get back up to 58, go through that intersection on US 6 and 93, head up the canyon. We've all been up the canyon, and there's so much cool stuff going on in that canyon. Can't wait to talk about that. But if you don't want to fish and you don't want to drive up the canyon, there's an opportunity for you to park right below tunnel number 1. And if you look at this, people tell me all the time, wow, that's open space. They built a nice little road in there. Open space is great, but let's not give them too much credit. The Denver and South Park Railroad built that. That's the old railroad grade from the narrow gauge days. So you can access a lot of this water by the existing railroad beds. That's how we found a lot of this stuff as kids. I tell this story once in a while, but on Sunday afternoons, my parents would take us to like Waterton Canyon, Clear Creek Canyon, and make us walk the railroad grade. Oh, this is where your grandpa drove the train. Great. Can we fish? But I kept that in the back of my mind, so you can access a lot of this river. This is kind of important stuff, particularly we're coming into the runoff season. Clear Creek's, the gradient on Clear Creek is about as steep as anywhere in the state. The Roaring Fork drops more per river mile than anywhere in the state. I'm not sure that Clear Creek does it as well. So it can be kind of dangerous. And that doesn't mean you can't fish it during runoff, but just know that it can change. And it can change overnight because it's almost as close to a pure, uncontrolled, only by Mother Nature freestone fishery. So it can change overnight. When the water's a little high and off color, there's no reason for you to test out your new Sims G3s and get about this deep. The fish aren't out there. It's an opportunity for you to leave your waders at home and just fish along the banks. So be careful, because Clear Creek can be very dangerous. I don't like this, but we have to talk about it, and I'm as guilty as anyone. There's no reason when you're fishing Clear Creek to take like 12 rods with you. Really. Why don't you leave a lot of your rods at home and not give any thieves any opportunities or any ideas that breaking in your vehicle, you know, is going to be very lucrative for them. Just take one rod, and we'll talk about one rod to use throughout this whole drainage. And it's pretty simple, an 8.5 to 9 foot 5. Works for everything, and that's a standard size, weight, length, except when we get up top. Now I'm teasing you. Just remember to lock your vehicle, and that anywhere you park on the I-70 corridor, it can be dangerous. This is a 1.5 miles up from tunnel number 1. Again, there's some big pullouts in here. And a lot of people told me for years, yeah, you can't really fish the canyon that much. You know, it's hard access. And, you know, look, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I don't like to be, well, especially when I fish the middle fork of the South Platte. I love it up there at the Alma State Wildlife Area because I can open my doors, listen to the Rolling Stones, and fish. That's how close I like to be to my truck. People up there, they know my truck. It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mick Jagger.
You don't have to get too far from your vehicle in this canyon either. But just be careful of the places you park, and be careful of when you fish the canyon. Because there's a lot of those gravel trucks that come down from the Fry Brothers quarry. And don't badmouth those guys, because in all the restoration projects that have been done on Clear Creek, guess where we got the rock? Now, I don't like it that there's a mountain disappearing up there, but at least they're giving back to some of these efforts. So this is great for those. Look at that foam line. For those of you who like to fish streamers, yeah, when that water warms up, you can fish streamers up there. Somebody told me one time, oh, trout don't eat streamers on Clear Creek. Oh. I'm like, huh, okay. Let me sell you 15 dozen parachute Adams over here. So that's the reason I love Clear Creek, because being a guide for so many years, you know, you go into Cheeseman Canyon or Deckers or the Williams Fork, and you open up your fly box and you just go, wow, I shouldn't have had that extra beer last night. What midge do I use, right? Versus open your fly box, get out an Amy's Ant and a Prince Nymph, and get after it. So if you want to fish one dry fly, fish will come up and eat dries a good part of the year in Clear Creek. You know that. The hopper dropper works great. For those of you who love to nymph fish, this is a great run to nymph fish. For those of you who want to fish a streamer, swing a streamer down through there. This oxygen, there's a tremendous amount of oxygen in that canyon, and the fish are pretty healthy. And a lot of times people say, well, the fish aren't that big in the canyon. That's okay. That is absolutely okay. It's okay. We'll show you where to catch some bigger fish. But if that's not what it's all about, it's about getting back to the way our grandpa taught us to fish. And fishing with about 3 flies. Now that doesn't bode too well. Dennis is gone, right? 46,000 flies over here. But we're going to make this really simple, because it should be, and that's why we fish it. This is a couple of miles up. This is just above tunnel number 2. This is a wide spot road. Anyone fish this? This might be the best dry fly fishing on the Front Range. But, you know, that's okay. And it's a great place to park. You just walk down the bank, very easy access. I'm very excited about this because a number of years ago, Clear Creek County and Jefferson County got together and they're like, wow, this is a pretty important resource in our backyard here. So we really want to add some access points to Clear Creek. So for those of you who saw those tractors and stuff up there, if you saw the tractors up there 4 years ago, that was stream reconstruction. that's being done at a place called Mayhem Gulch, which is 6 miles up from that initial intersection down there at 93. And this is the bottom end of that. So this is about 5 miles up. They put a bridge in there. And guess what they built? They built a bicycle path in there. They built a bicycle path with some access points to the river, which is great for incorporating a bicycle in your day of fishing, or for physically challenged folks that maybe can't climb and hike down along those rocks. And guess what they're using? The railroad grade. Once again, wow, the state's kind of thinking pretty cool. Another good thing the government's doing. So at some point, we've been told that by the year 2025, there will be a bicycle path. God only knows what gas is going to cost by then. You might be driving a Yugo. By 2025, there's going to be a bicycle path from downtown Golden to Loveland Ski Area.
Wow.
So that's what they're saying. That's what, who knows? A good part of it's already in place.
Yep.
This is one part I will tell you that the other side, and this is right 5 miles up, I will say that the other side of this river who's fished this? See, no one's fished this. Because Clear Creek is kind of tough wading. There's not a lot of places to park here. And it's like you're driving up there, and a lot of times you're in such a hurry to taking that shortcut to I-70, but you look at that water and you go, I bet there's fish there. Well, if you want to know how many fish are in there, wait till the flow comes up a little bit and put a raft on there and put somebody in the front of the raft with a helmet and a life jacket. You'll find out how many fish are in sections like this. And now we can access sections like this because of that bicycle path. And now we've actually kind of ran into a little bit of trouble with the folks who are up there gold panning and running dredges with the price of gold. Who wouldn't be trying to find gold, right? But you have to do it smart, and you have to pay attention to the rules and regulations. So now we've got signs up there that, to stay away from the structures that, people spent lots of sweat, money, and time to put in. So we're getting along just fine. You know what? And there's no reason to argue with these guys. We're all there just to have fun. There's so much fishable water on Clear Creek. If you see somebody gold panning, just fish a few hundred yards up or downstream from them. It's not a big deal. This is the Mayhem Gulch. It's that 6 miles up I told you about. There's a paved parking lot there. There's a tunnel. Who's fished this? This is very easy access.
That's new.
And there's a tunnel that goes underneath US 6 there, so you're not, watching and avoiding traffic trying to cross the road there. And for people that say, oh, I don't have time to fish, you don't have time to not fish this. Because you can pull off the road, there's a public bathroom there, I think there's some hiking there. I don't ride a mountain bike anymore because my body is too trash. I ride a stationary bike, so that way I can pretend I'm going up those steep hills. But there's biking there and an opportunity to catch these little wild rainbows. And you notice these fish are spunky in here. I don't care that they're 8 or 10 inches. When you hook one, they're not happy. Right? This isn't the frying pan where you hook one and they go, I know this drill. They get really mad. And look at the size of the tail of these fish. And these little brown trout, they'll give you a tussle. And it's very technical fishing in here. How about a dry fly and a beadhead nymph underneath it? So, that's just flat fun. That's getting back to making fly fishing less intimidating. This is part of that construction effort. I kept these in there because this is all of what was done with, you know what, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like gambling because I'm an Irish Catholic. So I know that that's in my genes, and I could end up in the basement of a Protestant church somewhere going through a 12-step process. I hope we can edit this. sports down the street. So the bottom line is, a lot of this work is being paid for with gambling funds. Really. They give a lot of, there's a couple organizations that use funds from the lottery sales for open space projects. And that's how some of this land was purchased. Not all of it, but you know, gambling, even though my grandparents were born in Central City, and I don't like it. I don't like gambling because my dad wasn't smart enough to hold on to their house before gambling became legal. So that's my deal. But buying a lottery ticket isn't the worst thing in the world, because a lot of those funds go to things like this. There's a bridge that's in there now. So you can literally park at that Mayhem Gulch, and now you can walk across that river and access that bicycle path down towards that first place that we looked at, cross the bridge there and walk back up. Or you can go upstream from there and access water that hasn't been accessed in a long time. I'm most excited about this. This is above that 6 miles up at Mayhem Gulch. The Canyon Reach Project is what it was called at TU. Just below tunnel number 5. We've all seen this, but we haven't been able to access it. Well, look at the bicycle path that was built in there. So a lot of this is, you know, very accessible now. Now this water during runoff here, yeah. You know what? How cool is it to fish water that's not like structured? You know who structured this? God. So, you know, this teaches you a lot about fishing. You know, a wild western freestone river. That's what this is. And now we can access a lot of it. There's the open space, and this is right above tunnel number 5. It used to be gated. We bought this. County bought this, and they used a lot of these great outdoors Colorado funds from the lottery. So buy lottery tickets. Now I'm encouraging people to gamble. Well, I'm gonna get all kinds of calls today. That's okay. So there's no longer a fence here, and there was equipment in there a couple years ago, and now this is a parking lot. Does anyone fish this stuff above tunnel 5? This is awesome. And the water, if you look at the water in there, it's great. Look how much work was done. And guess what they're using as a base? The old narrow gauge train road. So, you know, this is great access. This was private for a long, long time, and in fact, the original owner of the Blue Quill, Jimmy Cannon, who was still is a friend of mine, although he's mad at me because I don't do all this stuff on Facebook with him. Jim, you're retired. Calm down, I'm not. So he actually, you know, tried to buy this at one point, and it just never worked out. But there was a lot of work done there. Who's fished this? You fished this run. This is an incredible run. And this is basically right below the bridge that goes into tunnel number 5. And there's a lot of this pocket water. And in fact, we do a lot of our European nymphing clinics, a lot of our European nymphing educational seminars on Clear Creek because of the diverse amount of water. I mean, you can fish a pocket, a riffle, a run, you know, a back eddy, all within like 300 yards. And this little creek, even though it's not as technical, and we'll talk about what flies to use and tippets and leaders, where this stream challenges you, not just access, but the diversity. You know, there's all kinds of diverse water. Teaches you a lot. This is looking downstream, lots of great pocket water. This is looking at the bicycle path. Now I'm going to tease you just a little bit. Sorry, this rainbow has fine spots. Can you see those little fine spots? That kind of tells us a number of things, that maybe the gene pool is changing a little bit here.
Yeah.
Big time changing.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. So these rainbows definitely spawn in here. We don't know what strain they are. I do know that Parks and Wildlife put some rainbows in there that are a pretty decent size, and we'll talk about where they're at. There's a little brown trout that's caught at that tunnel number 5. Moving up just above tunnel number 6. This is another great opportunity. Wide spot in the road to park and literally walk 200 feet and fish a dry fly. So, you know, you don't have to spend a whole day in areas like this. And the other thing about this is it kind of brings out that adventurous nature in you. There's so much water in Clear Creek that I guarantee you doesn't get fished. And you know, you could spend a whole summer and not fish all of these pockets and riffles and runs in Clear Creek Canyon alone. So don't overlook an opportunity to be a little adventurous. I'm not saying that you need to hang on a rope and fish down underneath one of those ledges. There's a lot of people that do climb in there. I don't know why, but a lot of my presentations use bars, public restrooms, and liquor stores as reference points. This is at the top of the canyon. This is was Kermit's, and then it was like, now what is it, like the Two Bears, and it was the tributary?
It'll always be
I thought it
Kermit's.
was.
It'll always be Kermit's to me. And it'll always be a spot that you do not want to park in, because regardless who owns it, they have no sense of humor that you're on the quest of a lifetime to catch an 8-inch brown trout. So if you're going to park in their lot, buy something there.
Beer cheeseburger's pretty good.
Chili.
I'm just going to stop right there. I know what I would buy there. So, you can park across the street and then walk up under the I-70 bridge. And who's fished this I-70 bridge? You can also get to this off of I-70, going up Floyd Hill and getting off at exit 244, I believe. And then at the bottom of the hill, before you cross over 6 by Kermit's, you can pull down underneath the highway bridge. Who's fished it? See, I'm starting to see more and more people fish in there. Fishes pretty well, doesn't it? You caught some fish in there?
Oh,
What's that? This is another place that's blocked off, right?
Yeah.
No.
There's about 6 cars in there all the time when you go through.
But with the bicycle path, you can walk all the way up to exit 243. And I'm going to show you some stuff that I bet you don't see unless you're a skateboarder. So anyway, you can park here and access the bicycle path. I would tell you that Brian, one of our European guys well, he's from Colorado, but he does the European nymphing. I guess we didn't when I was a kid because we didn't have indicators. So I never thought to call it anything groovy. It's very challenging and it's an interesting way to fish. We all do it. Brian had a guide trip in there just about 200 yards up from the Two Bears bar off the bicycle path and caught like a 14, 15-inch brown trout. So are you going to catch them all the time when you're in there? No, but they're in there. All right. Who knows where the skate park is? We all know where the skate park is. By the way, I'm 60 and I recently sold my skateboard. I can't do it anymore. I can't even go down the driveway.
That's why I'm into fishing now.
There you
Go
go.
ahead.
We're going to bypass something. We're going to bypass exit 243. Every time I do a Clear Creek presentation, I change it, by the way. So we're down there at Two Bears Bar. We're parked there. We're not participating in anything there. So the next exit up is exit 243, and that's Hidden Valley, and that takes you over to Central City Blackhawk. You can park on the frontage road when you get off the highway there. And you can fish behind that trading post. We're not going to talk about that today. And in fact, when you go farther up by the old game check station on the other side of I-70, who's been around long enough to know where the game check station was? So yeah, now that there's a parking area there and there's an opportunity for you to fish there as well. So we're not going to talk about that. We're going to get off at Idaho Springs. And Idaho Springs is pretty groovy nowadays because they have you guys got roundabouts up there.
Fancy.
Really fancy. We got one over here.
Starbucks and everything.
So you're going to go through the roundabout and you're going to go down through the main street. And Main Street in Idaho Springs is Colorado Boulevard. It's not the one down here, it's the one up there. So you're going to go down Main Street, you're going to look for the Starbucks. So if you're interested in spending no one works for Starbucks here, right? spending $6 or $8 for a cup of coffee. I don't get any more of a buzz than I do from that stuff from Conoco. You're gonna look for the Starbucks, and the road next to Starbucks is called Gilson Road. Gilson Road. You're gonna turn right on Gilson Road, you're gonna cross over a bridge, and then you're gonna go downstream or take a right, and you're gonna go downstream past all of those condos. And guess what you run into down there? The skate park. No one fishes the skate park. No one fishes it. Who's fished the skate park? Wow.
You're right.
Have you found the trail that goes down towards the stuff that's above the twin tunnels? There's a little trail in there. The bottom line is, you can go park at that skate park, and there's a trail. You can't cross the river there because it's kind of treacherous, and the gradient's a little steep. But if you look downstream here, down towards the twin tunnels are over here, if you look at this run, this is a run that each and every person here has glanced over, whether you're conscious of it or not, and looked at that run where the river takes a hard right, and you go, wow, that's a beautiful run. Yes, indeedy. That's a beautiful run. Well, how do you get to it? Because it's surrounded by highway, and it's behind the city, and find the skate park. So find that skate park. Park there at the skate park, just past those condos, and there's a trail on River Left. And the trail's not too bad. It goes up and down and up and down, and it'll take you all the way down to that run that's just above the twin tunnels, and that's spectacular fishing. Especially in the next couple of weeks when that ice starts to come off, this area gets a fair amount of sun. And you want to fish this when it's fairly low. When it's high, it's kind of tough to access. But here's an opportunity for you to fish a part of Clear Creek that's hiding in plain sight. It's like 100 yards off I-70 and no one fishes it.
So Kerry, we're going downstream from the skate
You're going
park?
downstream from the skate park. Going upstream from the skate park, yeah, not much water there. Plus it's, steep banks. Go downstream.
Riverside Drive or Gilson?
Gilson.
Gilson.
So you can get there on Riverside Drive too.
Okay.
Turn right at the Starbucks.
So
Okay.
just turn right at the Starbucks. So anyway, going upstream, let's go ahead and drive all the way through the town of Idaho Springs on Colorado Boulevard before we make a decision to get back on I-70 West. You're going to take a left and get onto the Stanley Road, hence the Stanley Mine. So now you're on the frontage road. You're going to go up about 2 miles. By the way, there's not much public water on Stanley Road in and around the Stanley Mine. Don't even ask to fish it. For some reason, they think it's part of the Madison River in Montana or Wyoming. I don't know, but they won't let you fish it. And that's okay, because above it, the first thing you're going to encounter is some opportunities to fish just above that area below the Philadelphia mill site. But we all know what's below the Philadelphia mill site, right? The zip line. And a lot of people were kind of mad about that because there's like, well, the zip line's in there and they won't let us fish anymore in there. Well, I'm going to show you where to fish. It's just as good. And it's not taking up that much of water. But let's think about something one time, because I stop and ask those people that run the zip line, I go, how come we can't fish underneath the zip line? And they're like, in case something falls off of the zip line. What in God's green earth is going to fall off a zip line other than a human being? Right? And I'm not trying to say don't use the zip line. I'm not trying to take business away from the zip line. But above the zip line is the Philadelphia mill site. This is an incredible site. In fact, we're sending someone up there next week. Hopefully there's enough. It's getting warm enough to where you can start fishing it. Who's fished this area? This is right above the zip line. It's a parking lot in there now. This is what it looked like prior to the construction. There's opportunities in the Philadelphia mill site for physically challenged folks. They've built some weirs and built some structure in the creek there. And for those folks who have trouble wading, it's a great opportunity for you to fish.
The zip line area did have some cool holes, so I'm
It
still
did. I miss it,
mourning
trust
that.
me. But, so this is a great, and you can see the last
That hole
tower for the
really
zip line.
is in zip line.
Plus, those of you who are into four-wheeling right there, this road, the dirt road that you turn off will take you all the way to Central City. It takes you back up in there, but you might want to look at a map because you can get real lost. Stick to fishing it. Right above here, and that's the reason that we like the Coors Company. They've done a lot of good things for our Colorado outdoors here. Several years ago when Coors had a little mishap, and they dumped several hundred gallons of trichloroethylene by mistake into Clear Creek. TCE is deadly, kills everything.
Yeah.
It's a solvent. That's what caused the Love Canal on the East Coast. So they immediately went into cleanup mode, and not only did they go into cleanup mode, but as a give back after that, they built a boat ramp above the Philadelphia mill site. And so they dedicated it, and this is an opportunity for folks in the rafting company to put in there. But here's the deal. Who's a float fisher here? Some folks have fished out of a drift boat, right? Pretty cool. I drive drift boat guys crazy because I'm like, stop, pull over, let's fish that. That's right. Yeah, now that means that the shuttle is going to pick us up at midnight. So for those of you who have ever floated, know that the best place to fish are boat ramps. Why? Because you're either putting in there and in a big hurry to get out of there, or you're taken out there in a big hurry to load your boat and get out. Some of the best fishing opportunities are these boat ramps. I don't care whether you're on Clear Creek or the Colorado at Pump House. So this is a fairly large brown trout. The other thing that's pretty cool about this, brown trout spawn in and around these boat ramps because they flattened it out and there's a nice gravel bottom. So we've seen fish spawning in here, and the reason that my hat is cut off right there, because the guardrail for I-7.
Yeah. Don't see that.
Getting pretty handy with that cut and paste thing. Okay, let's drive on up. So we're going to get back on the frontage road, cross over I-70 and come out at the thriving metropolis of Dumont, or Downeyville, that whole area. There's a Starbucks there. You're going to turn, I'm in so much trouble already. The edit button's going to have to come out. So let's go past the Starbucks, or stop and buy something there. Go past the way station and go through the town of Dumont. Dawson, all three of those little towns kind of run into each other. Watch your speed through there because it's 25 miles an hour. Especially in the town of Lawson, which is the last suburb or township that's above, above the road there. And you're going to find a road that's Alvarado. And if you can't remember it, just remember avocado. So turn left onto avocado. Or Alvarado, whatever it is. And you're going to find the Mile High Rafting Company. Because I'm kind of dating myself now, is the Partridge Family Bus. We've seen this coming down I-70 forever. And that's how you get to it, is you get off at that Dawson, or the Lawson, Downeyville, Dumont exit, go back on the frontage road, turn left on Alvarado, and that puts you at the new Lawson Whitewater Park. This is another whitewater park. Who's fished this? See, I've fished it a fair amount. I've never seen kayakers in here. I don't know whether it's off of the radar, and the cool thing about it, because a lot of people say, I don't like fishing Clear Creek because in the summer there's too many rafters. If you fish from here up, there are no rafters. The water's too narrow, not many access points. So Lawson Whitewater Park, one time I stopped there on my way to the western slope just to have a Coca-Cola. and a sandwich. And, you know, I noticed fish coming up all over the place. Who goes to the frying pan to fish or the roaring fork to fish the green dray catch? Yeah, there's one right here. Now, I'm not insinuating that you're going to catch the same quality of fish. Yeah, they're wild. You're not going to catch as big a fish here. But there's a green dray catch, and I love to fish a green dray catch because your drifting skills, you don't need to be that dialed in with your dry fly fishing. Throw a big old fly out there and somebody's going to come up and eat it. So you can pull in, and there's a parking spot now. You can park here. This is public parking. And not only is it public parking, but there's another cement concrete access for physically challenged folks to go down and have an opportunity to fish and not have to hike. This is looking upstream from the Whitewater Park, the Lawson Whitewater Park. Who's fished this? We call this the stair steps. See, the state of Colorado built this a long, long time ago because when they built I-70, now I'm really dating myself. And when they built I-70, they had to move parts of Clear Creek. So as a give back, what the state did was they structured Clear Creek. That's how all of this structure got put in there over the years. And they were thinking, you know, pretty interestingly, they were thinking a lot about conservation and having fish hold and spots to hold. This is the closest place to Denver, I think, to catch brook trout. So let's talk about the fish we've caught. We caught a little brown trout down there in Golden. We've caught a couple of fine spot rainbows. Got another brown trout up there around tunnel number 5. This is the closest place to catch brook trout. And there's a lot of brook trout in here. And these brook trout will love to come up and eat dry flies, especially when the green drakes are hatching. They'll like knock brown trout out of the lake to get to a fly that's that big, right?
What time in the summer is green drake?
Usually around July.
Okay.
And we're going to talk a lot about green drakes from here on out.
Okay.
So great opportunity for you to fish. If you want someone wants to catch a brook trout, you don't want to drive up to Rocky Mountain National Park or Buffalo Creek and hike into the beaver ponds. This is a place to do it where you can get off the road and jump out. You don't even need to put waders on. Put a big old obnoxious dry fly on and catch brook trout. Now let's kind of backtrack a little bit, go back across Alvarado, go back up and get on US 40 and head towards Empire. Now I'm not going to talk right now about that fork of Clear Creek. We do not have time. That's actually a fork of Clear Creek that's going to be more and more and more available to us as the years go by. And I'll tell you why. The West Fork of Clear Creek, a big part of the West Fork of Clear Creek that comes down from Jones Pass is owned by the mine up there. I've lost track. Who owns that mine now? It was Amax, Climax, Henderson. Whoever owns it now is very interested in giving some of that property back. And so hopefully the West Fork of Clear Creek will become more and more of an option to us. If you want to fish the West Fork of Clear Creek, then continue on US 40 and head up to the Berthoud Pass. Before you go around that first turn, Berthoud Falls. At Berthoud Falls, before you go over Berthoud Pass, there's a turn lane. Take that road. And for those of you who are interested in fishing a stillwater, who's fished Urad Lake? Urad Lake is the exact same way that you get to Urad Lake. Just past Big Bend Campground. There's a road takes you up to Urad Lake. But Big Bend Campground is the only opportunity you have to fish the West Fork without being on mine property. So the West Fork is cool. I think as years come that it'll be good. There's a great opportunity for you to fish the bottom part of the West Fork down where it confluences the main stem of Clear Creek, and that's right at the Department of Transportation building at US 40.
Yeah.
We all know where that's at. Do not park in their lot. But you can park across the street, across the road in that lot, and you can skirt the Department of Transportation property. And when you get down here this is the Department of Transportation is right here. And there's the road. That's the frontage road that we're just about to get on to after this. But you can walk down here and look up the West Fork. It's pretty cool. I like fishing the West Fork, you know, right when runoff peaks, because it's normally not as much water. But there's a
What's
lot
in
of
there?
fish.
What's the main fish in there?
Brown trout
Brown.
and brook trout.
Okay.
And some funny trout that have things underneath their chins right here.
Yeah.
This is what that parking lot looks like. That parking lot is right here. There's where the West Fork comes in. We're not gonna fish the West Fork right now. We're gonna continue on. We're gonna continue on this frontage road. By the way, that's the West Fork. And if you really wanna challenge your casting abilities, then move up the West Fork a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened here. This is a Charlie Myers photograph, by the way. He's like, I'm not walking up that. So I'm like, good, Charlie, because I'm not either. So hopefully we'll catch a fish, and we did. But the West Fork has a lot to provide and a lot for us to think about in upcoming years. We hope that there's more opportunities to fish it. So as we move up the frontage road up towards Georgetown Lake, this is very disturbing. There's a lot of private water. Who's a member of Rocky Mountain Angling Club? So you know this is where the Clear Creek property is. There's also some other property there off the frontage road that's owned by the Department of Transportation, and we can't fish it. Why? I have no idea. But just keep driving up. And the reason I kept this slide in here, and that's because it's my old truck, but because of how careful we have to be on Clear Creek and how vulnerable Clear Creek is. This was the first public access above that West Fork confluence to fish Clear Creek below Georgetown Reservoir, and it was right above that last house. And you could pull in there and you could fish upstream a little bit. Well, right now it's closed. And you know why it's closed? Because somebody decided to dump some used oil and diesel fuel in the parking lot here. And I was in there one day, I talked to some folks, we parked in there, and not a lot of water to fish, but some really good water to fish, and I was like smelling diesel fuel, and it's like slurp, slurp, slurp. It's like, what's going on here? So I called somebody, and they said there had been a report. I called the guys at Parks and Wildlife, and so they went in there and found out that someone was dumping diesel fuel here and used oil instead of paying for it to be recycled. So that's how vulnerable, and that's how things on the I-70 corridor can go.
So is that why they
Trash.
posted it now and put
It's
the
posted.
date up? Yeah.
It's locked, so we lost access to it. But my hope is that we still have access to it in the next couple years, because this is what it looks like upstream, and there are some really nice brown
Under
trout.
that log, there's some big ones in there.
There's some big ones in there. Yeah. So let's move on up to above Georgetown Lake, and we're almost done here, but from here on out, I will tell you, this is a little bit of a controversial part of my talk. Who has seen the spawn run? By the way, how we get up there is we stay on the frontage road, and we go past the Georgetown Lake, and we pull into where those condos are. And this is an opportunity for you to park. And now the reference point is, they built a whole bunch of condos now, or in construction. The new ones, right along the lake. That doesn't mean we can't fish that. So, if you want to fish this in the fall, in the springs, the rainbow trout come in there to swim, but in the fall is really a fun time to fish it. Who's fished this in the fall? So you want to pull in by just above the lake. Find a pedestrian bridge. You can park there, and you can fish Clear Creek all the way up past the dollar store. There's a couple of places that you cannot cross because you can't fish behind the condos, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But there are literally, who's fished this? Who's fished it during the spawn? See, I get a lot of grief about talking about this. We don't understand how fertile Georgetown Lake is. Clear Creek feeds Georgetown Lake. So in the fall, the brown trout, that's an incredibly fertile lake, and there is a lot of fish in there. And in the fall, those brown trout come out of that lake to spawn. Who's fished it?
It's good to watch.
Thank you.
It's good to watch.
Yeah, you don't need waders because you can walk across the fish. So, you know, we've talked to Parks and Wildlife and, you know, about possibly shutting that down for a couple of weeks. And they really just can't, because it can't really prove that it's a successful spawn. But I will tell you, if you know, and I'm not advocating fishing over spawning fish in any way, shape, or form. But it's a great opportunity for you to take a youngster or someone that doesn't understand Mother Nature and how our fish reproduce and how our natural resource works. So in the fall, when those brown trout run up out of that reservoir to spawn, there are, Dave, what do you think? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brown trout in Clear Creek, from above that pedestrian bridge all the way up through town. Now, that doesn't mean you can't fish. The whole reason I fish is so that I can give the trout anything they're eating. If a trout comes up and eats a duck I'm making a fly, it looks like a duck. When trout are eating their own eggs, I'm very careful not to fish over. Look, people don't like to be messed with when they're spawning. So do not mess with the trout when they're spawning. If they're paired up and on a red, leave them alone. But there's a lot of fish in there, and there's an opportunity, and believe it or not, they won't just randomly eat an egg pattern. As Dave will tell you, you know, you got to be a little more technical than that. A lot of times you got to put on like a WD-40. RS2 works. But this is a great opportunity for you to go look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fish spawning. And no one used to fish this. And boy, did I get a lot of grief over the first time I did this presentation. You can't talk about that. Well, we need to talk about it because we need to be responsible anglers. There's no reason for you to take a golf counter, and I know nothing about golf, but to take a golf counter up and it's like, you know, count the number of fish that you catch. It's an opportunity for you to fish over a lot of fish close to home, or take someone up there like a young kid that doesn't have a lot of experience. Show them Mother Nature, teach them how to fish. This is what the fish look like in here. This is a Charlie Myers picture too. You see how they're spawning in there. They're kind of rubbing their bellies off. That's a nice fish. Charlie's son is actually holding this one. That's a decent sized brown trout. What's the biggest fish you've caught in there, Dave?
About 20.
You can catch 20-inch fish in there when the rainbows are up in there eating the eggs and harassing the browns, and vice versa happens in the spring.
Want to fish the
So-
pool just for a little bit, then fish all of the runs.
Yeah.
That way you don't disturb them so
So,
much.
you know, you can stay, you'll see when they're stacked up, they're doing their thing, just walk past them. Because there's, like what Dave said, there's a lot of fish staging in pools or moving upstream because they're pretty savvy of that pressure. So they'll move upstream. This is my daughter, it's an older picture of her. She's at the University of Nebraska now. She doesn't, I'm not very cool. Sorry.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to hang out with Dad anymore. I bought a red phone. I was excited to tell her. 'Cause I'm a Colorado guy, but it's like, I bought a red phone. She's like, what'd you call me for? I'm like, okay.
What's your point?
There's a pedestrian bridge. You'll see a lot of fish spawning in there. Great opportunity to take a youngster up there, have them catch the fish, and show them the catch and release thing. This is that set of condos. That's the next set of condos up. There's a road over here, and you can access and fish this water all the way back down to the lake. By the way, the lake has been dredged, and the upper part of that lake now is going to hold more and more fish. So this is only going to become more and more of a healthy fishery. We wish they'd put some regulations on it. We don't need that, and I'm tired of thinking about what if. Well, what we should do. I don't have a problem if you want to harvest a fish. This is a great opportunity to do it. But for the most part, we like to release fish, and that's why I got on my high horse, because from here on out, I'm going to just ask you what we're going to talk about. We need to release fish from here on out. So, by the way, this is Denny. He's a Catholic deacon down at St. Joe's. He caught this brook trout, another great opportunity to catch a brook trout on an egg pattern. So if a man of the cloth doesn't have a problem,
You may not know any better.
you know,
That's
you
a
bring up
detail.
a good point. All right. You can now fish, you know, up. You know what was really cool? This is behind the dollar store, just above those condos. These guys that were building the dollar store, inadvertently, we think, inadvertently, put these rocks in here. How cool is that? You know how much trouble you can get in doing that? This is technical fishing, but you can fish all the way up to the bridge that's just on the other side of the roundabout in town. And this holds a tremendous amount of fish. And if you want to get away from some of that fishing pressure, some of the fishing pressure that happens behind those condos, you need me to back up?
Nope.
Okay. So if you want to get away from some of that fishing pressure, just get across that pedestrian bridge, get on the road, walk up, find a dirt bicycle path, and walk up and fish behind the dollar store all the way up to the bridge. Because a lot of times those bigger fish get very savvy of that pressure. And we've caught some pretty big fish in there in the fall, particularly rainbows are in there, you know, harassing the brown trout and eating eggs. You could potentially catch a 16 to 20 inch rainbow. So that's a place to go in the fall and catch, you know, bigger fish. The Georgetown Loop is a great place to fish, right on the bottom side of it, just, you know, outside of the bottom depot. You can access the river. However, the Georgetown Loop Railroad, here we're right back to the zip line thing again, right? The railroad doesn't want you in there fishing when they're running the narrow gauge. I guess they think fly anglers like have picnics on railroad tracks. I don't know what their reasoning is. It's a danger thing, it's a liability thing. When the train's running, you cannot fish this, but don't overlook this when the train is not running. So instead of getting back on I-70, find the way and the route to the Georgetown Loop, the bottom depot, and you can park there and you can access, and this is great. Have you fished it? It's great pocket water. There's brown trout in there, there's brook trout in there. You don't have to walk too far, but it can be it's a little tricky. It's some trickier wading. From here on up, now we're gonna have to talk. We're almost done. We're going to have to talk about some catch and release, because from here on up is pretty special. Who's fished from Silver Plume up? So you know what goes on up there, and we need to be careful of it. So if you just want to fish this area, it's a narrow window of opportunity. After pre-runoff, it doesn't fish that well, especially this year because of the snowbanks. But after runoff until about September, so, you know, June, late June, July, August, September, pretty narrow window of opportunity. So remember when I said earlier that the state of Colorado was really cool? They built all that structure when they built I-70. Guess what else they did? They built a cutthroat restoration area. We just all forgot about it. Ding, 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 ding. My dad and I found it because we used to hunt ptarmigan up on Gray's and Torrey's Peak. And we would always fish the creek and camp down there when they used to let you camp down there. So from here on up, I just ask that we all understand catch and release. Be careful with this area. Enjoy this area. Please respect this area, because it's the closest place to home that we can catch some very special fish. Here's how you get there. You go up I-70, you get off at Silver Plume, and it's called Silver Valley, and there's a big sign there, Silver Valley Lakes. You can park at Silver Valley Lakes, and don't fish those lakes.
Actually, they lost the.
They did. I talked to them the other day, but the sign's still there.
checked it out.
We do
Where the
some
lake
of our
is?
fishing
Yeah.
schools. I talked to Chief the other day.
They lost it.
Last year, yeah, they lost a lot of fish in there. Rocky Mountain Angling Club, Silver Valley Lakes last year, the feeder creek dried up because of the drought up high. So that lake just turned into just a big mud puddle. So they lost it. But anyway, you can still park there. You won't want to even fish those lakes now, they're so low. But park there and walk across the road, and there's an old historic railroad bridge that's broken down. It's the Argentine Railroad Bridge. From here on up, it was Argentine narrow gauge. That bridge collapsed. Well, when we do stream reconstruction, and when the experts redo rivers and plant particular species of fish, one thing they like to do, and that's build barriers so fish can't get in and out, particularly if they're replanting wild fish. Well, this is a natural barrier. So when that Argentine Railroad Bridge, and we're 2 miles above Silver Plume now, when that bridge broke down years ago, it's got piled up with all kinds of debris. So down below there, brown trout cannot get up there. Brook trout seem to find their way up there, but very few. Rainbow trout cannot get up there. But you can fish this plunge pool. Literally, this is so close to the road, you could probably park on the road and cast out the window and catch brook trout here. So there's a ton of brook trout in this little plunge pool. Now we're going to walk upstream, and there's plenty of opportunity for you to fish the stream right here, but we're going to walk up until we find the bridge to nowhere. Do we all know where that bridge is at? It's this bridge that we drive under when we're on I-70 coming back down from the Eisenhower Tunnel, right? And you wonder, where does that highway bridge go? Because it's a beautiful highway bridge that goes to a 2-track.
Yeah.
How would you like to have been the contractor that sold the state that? Build you a multi-million-dollar bridge that goes nowhere, but that's your reference point. So you're going to find that bridge to nowhere as you're parked at Silver Valley, and you're going to look upstream. And this is kind of a close-up shot. This looks like something in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yep.
Who's fished this? It's pretty spectacular. And we really, from here on up, need to be very careful, because that's what we're looking at. That's that same picture. There's I-70. So as we move up this run, can be incredibly technical.
Are you using a 3-weight on that?
Yeah, I am. We'll talk about that at the end. You can, if you have an 8.5 to 9 foot 5-weight, you're going to get tangled up from here on out. From here on out, you can leave that big, your Decker's rod needs to be in your vehicle. This is the only time I'm going to tell you need some sort of specialty rod. A little shorter, a little lighter. But it's all upstream casting, and a lot of this is sight casting. And a lot of this is dry fly fishing. And I don't, a lot of times from here on up, I don't even use a dropper. It's not fair. I use one single dry. How cool is that? It's like the way I learned to fish Buffalo Creek. So if you work your way up here, look at this water. This is incredible. And I love it because I tell the story that I think, my imagination runs wild with me, but think about these people in that Jeep right there. I think about it being a couple, because a lot of times the gals are way more on top of things than the guys. And the girl says to the guy, well, do you think there's any fish there? What's he going to say? No. It's too close to the road, and it's too narrow. Right? Wrong. These plunge pools all hold cutthroat trout. The only thing you need to really be careful of in here is that your back cast doesn't hit a car.
Or they don't throw their apple
Each one of these plunge pools, this is the bottom end of where the state of Colorado, the old Parks and Wildlife, planted cutthroat trout in hopes that they would reproduce. And they're reproducing, and they're survivors. So, how many times have you heard on the news lately, oh, just leave them alone? Oh, go enjoy it. But leave them in the water. Be careful from here on up. What kind of cutthroat is that? I have no idea about DNA. I don't know what kind of cutthroat it is. Here's what happened in that cutthroat restoration area. They planted greenbacks, Colorado River cut. They planted the whole bunch of cutthroats that are, for the most part, native to Colorado. They all put them in there together, thinking that they would all like stay with their family. That didn't happen.
Cats and dogs living together.
And promiscuous trout.
That's why so many people came here from Ireland. Right? It's the same deal. All these fish in that same pool got happy. So there's so many different cutthroats that don't even exist anywhere. So how cool is this?
Those spots look like that rainbow you showed us.
Exactly. So is this a pure strain cutthroat? I don't know. Yeah, let's do a DNA test on it. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's a cutthroat. And one of these days, I've been talking with Landon. He won't do it for me now, but Tony's going to do it. We're going to get this on video. This is like right next to I-70, leaning over one of those boulders, and boom. This is literally 100 yards from where we caught the last one. This is a greenback.
Yeah,
We
that's a
think.
few. Yeah.
We don't know. They won't answer you. They won't. Too mad from getting caught.
Where are we at? Around Bakerville or upstream downstream?
Bakerville. We're not to Bakerville yet.
Oh, okay.
We are at Silver Valley Lakes,
You know Bakerville.
above Silver Plume, 2 miles. There are stair step after stair step after stair step next to the frontage road there. You could spend a whole day in there. You see where these stair steps go? Above here, there's a little bit of private water, and it's pretty well marked. There's not much private in here. And guess what happens around July 25th? Green drakes. And we love these cutthroats in here. And for those of you who are suspect, look up Charlie Myers and just Google up Charlie Myers Clear Creek. Because Charlie and I did a story up here and he was shocked. And we caught a 16-inch cutthroat in here. Is that going to happen every time you go up? No, but it could. But they're cutthroats, and when the green drakes come off in here, they get really dumb. These are very smart, spooky fish until the green drakes come off. And this is like an Irish family at the Thanksgiving table. Just go crazy. So July 25th, green drakes. Every fish in the river eats green drakes. They're very opportunistic. So let's continue on the frontage road. Let's go up to Bakerville. At Bakerville, the bicycle path will take you from here all the way up to Loveland Ski Area. And we were all upset, so if you just want to go and fish this, Bakerville, we're at Bakerville now. So if you just want to fish this, get off at Bakerville, the Bakerville exit. Used to be a bar there, it burned down. It's the only place you could go at 16 to drink. So there's a great parking lot there, and Bakerville's an interesting part of Clear Creek because there's this little creature it's a beaver, and we like that guy because the beaver family builds up a couple of big beaver dams and backs up water on Clear Creek. And then the water board comes in, or whoever comes in, and says, oh, no. That can't, we got to get water to Denver, and so they take the dam out. But every year when that beaver does its part for conservation, it backs up Clear Creek to where it's like a giant little back eddy. And where do you think those cutthroats go in the winter? Go in that beaver pond. That's how they survive in that nasty, crazy environment up there that's about that deep with snow right now. So at Bakerville, you'll see that beaver pond. It's tricky to fish. Look, I grew up fishing beaver ponds on Buffalo Creek. These are tricky beaver ponds to fish. You can't get anywhere close to them. Those cutthroats will just take off like crazy. But find your bicycle path there, and you can walk up this bicycle path. I was really disappointed when the first time I saw them pave it. It's like, oh my gosh, the secret's out. Well, there are no secrets.
No.
And I would rather share my passion with this little drainage and have people understand this is a special place and we need to release fish. That's where I'm at. Education and awareness and conservation is going to ensure that these fish continue to survive. Plus, if you walk up that bicycle path with your 9'5", and I've had it happen. I sent a guy up there a couple years ago and he came back, he's like, I'm not fishing that. I can't cast. I'm like, well, you could probably just dab your fly in there with that rod and catch fish. This is what that water looks like as you move up that bicycle path. And there are no paths along the river. Not that many people fish it. Not that many people really want to take the time and effort. This is not something for everyone. It's something different to do. It's an opportunity for you to use a specialty rod and catch really special fish and make the drift of a lifetime. 3 feet. But it better be perfect.
There's a really smart fish under that log, and it's hard to.
I have dreamt about fish under that log. What you don't know here is this is 4 feet deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's cutthroats on the bottom that are like that. Well, you know how I got to them?
Fell in.
Nymph rig.
Yeah.
Yeah. One single nymph. Standard nymph rig, just like you'd use at Deckers. Otherwise, just use your dry dropper. That's the deacon, and that's how you have to fish this stuff. So as we move farther up, you can see the fish here. And again, this is a completely different type of cutthroat. We don't know what it is. Here's what we know. It's a cutthroat. As we move farther up, you're going to notice that the bicycle path takes a hard left turn and moves away from the creek. Have you been up there? So that's another railroad bridge. So if you stop, see the railroad bridge? Path is over this, where are we at here? Path is over here. So if you go over and access the flows, you can walk up the creek. It's kind of tricky wading, but there are so many fish stacked up in front of this railroad bridge. But you better not have a foot in the water. You better cross below it, and you better come up on the bank, and you better be in the shadows.
Yeah.
And you got to put a big old dry fly right next to one of those railroad embutments that far off, and fish will come out of nowhere. And those cutthroats come out from underneath. You see, what a lot of this does is provide, this is substructure in here. This is a cut bank that bridge has provided. And as we move farther up, this is now we're into the restoration area. There's lots of this stuff. Restoration, drop pools. Every single one of these drop pools holds fish, cutthroats. Do not beat up on these fish. But you know what? Again, I would rather educate people about this, because what's disturbing for me, and I promise I'll get off my high horse, the last time I was in here, there wasn't as many fish in this pool. For those of you who have done a guide trip or two up in there, we call this the money pool for a reason. The last time I was in there, you know what I found? Not as many fish in bait containers over here.
Yeah.
Is it illegal? No. You can fish bait in there. Now, how can the state justify, no one works for the state here, right? Spending the kind of money, or seeing the money and the effort and the time and the volunteers that have spent restoring Clear Creek, and not at least change a rag here and there. You
Do
can
they
fish bait in
refuse,
here.
or-
You can take fish out of here. So you see, the more people that know about this, look, go check it out. There's a lot more than what I've talked about. But this is nothing short of beautiful. This looks like something in a foreign country somewhere that you would have to pay lots of money to go on horseback in and find. However, I-70's right there. And you know what? There's a lot of people that say, I don't like fishing that because I hear Jake breaks in cars. The first time a cutthroat comes up and eats a dry fly that big, I hear nothing. I hear my grandfather in my ear going, take the dropper off. Right?
Let
That's
go
how
of the
cool this
dropper.
is. That is a spectacular cutthroat for anywhere in this state. unless you're gonna go like what Ron talks about in those high altitude lakes and catch some of the bigger ones. This is an opportunity to catch a great cutthroat on a Charlie Boy hopper.
And
on
he's
4X.
darker. He's really dark on the top.
Yeah, who knows what kind of cutthroat it is. This is just another cousin from the one that we caught 20 feet downstream. You know, I took a circuit court judge in there one time. We gave away a trip for trout, raise money for Trout Unlimited. And he told me one time, he said, these fish look like those little eggs. What do they call those glass eggs? Fabergé eggs.
Yeah, Fabergé.
He described these fish as looking like Fabergé eggs. They're beautiful. Once again, that's looking upstream. Now let's talk about the most, another exciting part, and then we'll finish up. Exit 218 above there is Herman Gulch. Who's fished this? You see, this is under a lot of restoration fish-wise. Parks and Wildlife. There's an organization that I forget, Cutthroats Forever. Anyway, TU. There's some organizations here that have gone into Herman Gulch and removed the cutthroats that are in there. They had a great fishing day that day. They removed them and they took them down to Lower Clear Creek above Bakersville. And they restored greenback cutthroats. Because this is the upper part of the cutthroat restoration area. So hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years we're going to see greenback cutthroats in here. I'm a little concerned that cutthroats got a mind of their own. You put them at Bakersville, they're just liable to end right back up at Herman Gulch. But there is going to be a pure strain, or closest to a pure strain, of greenback cutthroat that's put in at exit 218. If you want to fish it, get off at the Herman Gulch exit. You can park over in that parking lot, or you can turn back under the highway, and there's a little area to park. And if you look down, this is what the creek looks like. Everyone in this room has looked at this. I guarantee it. Whether you did subconsciously or not. When you're coming down I-70, you've glanced over and you've looked at this. Stop your vehicle. And get your fly rod. This is an incredible fishery. Look at that. This is part of the cutthroat restoration area. See the structure? The bigger, more rubberized hopper that you can put to float in this white water, you'll have these cutthroats that come up and eat flies in the white water. Cast up in here, drop a big Charlie Boy into there, and somebody's going to eat it. So pretty cool stuff. Bingo. That's starting to look real cutthroat-like.
Yeah,
So from here on out, you gotta respect these fish.
the lack of spots on the top
Exactly.
half, yeah.
So for those of you who wanna dig up that article in the archive somewhere that Charlie wrote, is one of the less special to me because it's the last article that Charlie wrote when he was out before he had 6 weeks to live. And we took pictures on Clear Creek at Bakersville. So go enjoy this. Just